Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, 14 of our fallen soldiers who were killed in the DRC are expected to come home tomorrow. But will the rest of our soldiers be withdrawn from this peacekeeping mission? The Joint Standing Committee on Defence Co-Chairperson Malusi Gigaba will join us tonight following the appearance of the SANDF leadership in Parliament earlier today. Also on the show, what is the EFF's plan to strengthen organizational unity given what the party has gone through over the last year with the election results, the departure of some leaders from the party? The party's Secretary General Marshal Dlamini speaks to us tonight following the party's first Central Command team meeting of the 3rd People's Assembly. And then later, why is Afriforum hell-bent on spreading false propaganda about this country? The CEO at Afriforum, Kali Kriel, speaks to us. But first, my comment. Now, there has been so much attention on this country over the last 2 weeks. We have actually made global headlines in just the last 2 weeks, from the diplomatic conflict that was playing out between the Rwandan president and our president about the involvement of our soldiers and, of course, the Rwandan soldiers in the DRC. At least their tensions are now calm. The respective leaders of both countries are talking to each other like they're supposed to from the onset. And now there's attention on us because of that threat on South Africa by US President Donald Trump. If you missed it, he tweeted that, and I quote, "South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation that the radical left media doesn't want to so much as mention. A massive humanitarian rights violation. At a minimum, it's happening for all to see. The United States won't stand for it. We will act. Also, I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until a full investigation of the situation has been completed." End quote. And it's been great to see South Africans from different political backgrounds, different party leaders, business leaders taking a stand against President Trump, because once again, he has relied on fake news, on disinformation and false propaganda to inform his government's position about our policies. And obviously the US has a right to respond to our policies or our approaches to global issues. But at the very least, let them be informed by facts. And that's not what's happening here. And it doesn't help that there are groups and parties in this country who have spread this false propaganda. But it helps to see different parties coming together to defend this country and for seeing government take a stand which is so firm and refuse to be micromanaged by the US. Here's the president's spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, responding to the US president.
We will never, as South Africa, engage deliberately on a trade war with a trading partner or respond in a manner that will seek to undermine our bilateral trade relationship, excuse me, as well as our overall diplomatic relationship. I noted what Minister Mantashe said. That's not the official position of government. This issue has got nothing to do with trade. This is an issue over aid, but also informed by distortions and lies, quite frankly. And we've been quite quick in being resolute in terms of stating the facts, and the facts are there is no confiscation of anyone's land in South Africa. There is no officially sanctioned discrimination by the government of anyone in this country. The Expropriation Act has been unfortunately misinterpreted, and there's been a lot of fear-mongering generated by right-wing organizations such as Afriforum, who have no interest in seeing South Africa transform and advance, who have been consistent in their pursuit of racial divisions in this country. And so as a responsible government, we're going to be engaging the Trump administration at multiple levels of the administration.
The EFF leader, Julius Malema, also responded, and he said President Donald Trump must not undermine the country's sovereignty.
The EFF has noted the threat by the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, who has issued a threat to cut foreign aid to South Africa and impose sanctions on South Africa for adopting legislation that permits the expropriation of land without compensation and implementing policies that addresses historical race-based inequalities in our country. The statement by Donald Trump is offensive and undermines our sovereignty, and is a reminder that our reliance on foreign aid and foreign direct investment surrenders us to the will of imperialists who use money to dictate the economic and policy direction of Africa. We want to make it categorically clear to the President of the USA that we are going to expropriate land without compensation and pursue legislative measures to do so, and no threat will stop us.
Well, our ambassador to the US also responded firmly against President Trump.
I think that the land issue has emerged as the crucial pretext on which the president has tweeted. And certainly, I think we're treating it as a social media post. It is not an executive order. It is not an act of Congress. It is not even a rule coming out of State Department. And so, for me, the promise of an investigation is an invitation for engagement. I think that's what our president has said. Let's engage. We will fully be available for such an investigation. Put, I think, a reasonable land reform act on the table with the president and whoever he appoints to investigate that. I believe we are very confident that it is as reasonable as everything we have done in the transition from 1994 onwards. I feel very confident that we have a case, and I'm very happy that we have an invitation to participate in an investigation, and we will be absolutely ready as South Africa to be available with our facts.
So it's important that South Africa responds firmly against Donald Trump while also keeping open the channels of communication. The US must respect the position South Africa takes on any issue, whether it agrees with those positions and policies or not. Whether it's our position on the Middle East or on the Russian war in Ukraine or even our policy on expropriation. Isn't that at least the courtesy you afford a sovereign state? This is the moment South Africa needs to stay firm and put its foot down, like President Cyril Ramaphosa did back in 2018. Remember that? When Trump tweeted that he has asked his Secretary of State then, Mike Pompeo, to closely study the South African land and farm seizures and expropriations and large-scale killings of farmers. At the time, our president responded like this.
Donald Trump must leave us alone. He must leave us alone, Kaori. When we were facing apartheid, when we were facing oppression, he was not here. He did not fight side by side with us. And we were able, on our own, yes, with support of progressive forces in the world, to resolve the apartheid question. As far as I recall, Donald Trump was not around the negotiating table when we negotiated the end of apartheid. So stick around there in the White House. We will do our business here, and we will find solutions for our problems. So stay out of our issues, and we will not get involved in your issues in America.
It was a strong statement. And of course, we can't live to appease the US. They will bully us every single time. What happens when they want to influence our policy? What happens when they don't like a popular candidate that's running for president? What happens when they don't like that we are in BRICS? And yes, South Africa needs the US to create hundreds of thousands of jobs in South Africa, but the US needs us too. And yes, we need them more than they need us, but they do need us. It's not in their interest to break ties with us, considering that Pretoria is its biggest trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa. The US also doesn't want to lose diplomatic space in Africa to either Russia or China. We are the US's biggest trade partner in the region, and that's significant for them. So the Republic of South Africa is a sovereign country, and our republic is not up for sale. Our constitutional democracy can't be micromanaged by the United States. We need to refuse these attempts to bully us. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves in a very difficult and untenable place. So the question we're asking you for tonight is, what should the South African government do to address attempts to interfere with our sovereignty while also maintaining a positive relationship with America? Are you satisfied with our government's response? What if we face consequences for defending our sovereignty? Are we ready to pay the price for that? Let us know your thoughts on what's transpired over the last couple of days on our WhatsApp line. You can send your voice notes right now on 078-459-1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from. Please keep them at 30 seconds. Alternatively, send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. After the break, we'll start our conversation with the joint committee chair on defense, Malusi Gigaba, about the SANDF leadership's appearance in Parliament earlier today. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Chief of the Army, General Rudzani Mapanywa, says the remains of our soldiers who were killed in the eastern DRC will be repatriated tomorrow. The SANDF general made the statement in response to a question from the EFF during the Defence Committee briefing, where Defence Minister Nji Motshekga was providing an update on the situation in the eastern DRC. Remember, last month, 14 of our soldiers lost their lives in a conflict between the M23 rebels and the Congolese army. The Joint Standing Committee on Defence Co-Chairperson Malusi Gigaba joins us now via video link. Malusi, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement, and to the viewers at home.
What is the status of our soldiers right now from the information that the SANDF shared with you? There have been all sorts of claims and confusion about whether or not they're captured.
No, our soldiers right now are not captured. They are in camp, and there has been a ceasefire which has been declared starting over the past weekend. And so we have been informed that the soldiers are safe, they are in camp. The priority right now is to repatriate the remains of those who died during conflict last week, to attend to those who are injured, and ensure that the ones that remain in base are provided with all the support in terms of equipment, food, and so on, to lift their morale and ensure they are able successfully to execute their mission.
Was the SANDF able to explain how our soldiers died?
The information we have at the present moment, which they provided us, obviously we have to go with it, is that our soldiers died during a conflict when the Congolese soldiers, without communicating with us, shot fire across our base towards Rwanda. And Rwanda retaliated. In the course of that, we then lost the first 9 soldiers, with the 3 being lost subsequently, and one of those dying as a result of the wounds he sustained. And that's the information we have. But it helps us a great deal that there has been peace at the present moment, and the leadership of SADC and the East African community are in dialogue to resolve the matter.
Yeah, and that piece of information is crucial because there has been a back and forth between our president and the Rwandan president about who exactly killed our soldiers. So from the information that the SANDF shared with you, there was, so it's the Congolese army that fired towards our direction. The Rwandan army fired back in retaliation. Is that when our soldiers died? When the Rwandan army fired back?
The information is that the Congolese soldiers fired towards the direction of Rwanda, but they were behind our camp. And so Rwanda thought that it was us who were firing towards them. It was in the course of that when we had already suffered casualties, because when the firing started, we seemingly were unaware and therefore unprepared, because we didn't expect that the Congolese would fire towards Rwanda and Rwanda would retaliate. And so in the course of that, South African soldiers suffered casualties and some got injured. So it seems that it was the casualties happened from the fire of the Rwandan army, and that's how we suffered the casualties.
Okay. When you say that when they responded, Rwanda, and then our soldiers were not prepared, I'm assuming they were not expecting for, of course, Rwanda to be firing towards them. Do they have the support?
No.
Yeah?
No, were they expecting the Congolese to fire towards Rwanda? So that entire exercise caught us by surprise. And it's one of the things we raised in the committee, whether we had sufficient intelligence information to inform us that the Congolese were planning to do that. Because on both the side of Rwanda and Congo, we do not approach them as adversaries. We are not an enemy force in conflict with either of these sources of these forces. We are a friendly force there to maintain and keep the peace.
What about the issue of equipment and support and the skills needed for this mission? As the committee, are you satisfied from the information you received from the minister that our soldiers are properly equipped and skilled and supported for this mission?
The committee was briefed and assured by the chief of the South African National Defence Force that our soldiers are well equipped and have all the support. The committee felt that we do need to have a closed meeting so that we can probe these issues further and get more information on the type of equipment. There were questions asked about the support in terms of the planes, the drones, and other such equipment, which would be vital in the cause of exchange of fire and to provide cover to our soldiers who are in camp.
Yeah.
And the chief of the National Defence indicated that the support is there, but they would be willing to share more information, more confidential information with us when we meet in a closed meeting, which we are going to apply for in Parliament so that it happens as soon as possible.
Okay. Are our soldiers there as part of a peacekeeping mission, or are they there on an offensive mission? And I'm asking that question because the general of the SANDF said that the SANDF missions involve supporting the DRC in neutralizing negative forces and armed groups in the DRC. So if we are there to neutralize negative forces, who do we even classify as a negative force? Is it only the M23 or is it the FDLR as well?
There are various forces on the ground in the DRC that are involved in this conflict. That is why it's a very complex conflict situation. There are various countries which are also implicated. There is a lot of politics and history that is behind all of the conflict that's taking place. We are there to maintain and keep the peace and to protect the civilians in the case of attack. And that's the issue, because there seems to be different opinions among the parties involved, that is both in the DRC and within the country, about whether we are an enforcement or peacekeeping mission. So the committee has suggested that we call forth both the letters of deployment from the President of South Africa, as well as from the SADC mission itself, so that we study them and understand, because on the basis of that, we should determine whether the force had sufficient equipment to exercise their mission. The department insists that they are they are on a peacekeeping mission, and therefore they could not bring with them offensive equipment as if they are going to war.
Yeah.
But if the mission is an enforcement mission, we must therefore determine whether the level of training provided was suitable for the mission, whether the equipment they traveled with was suitable to the mission,
yeah.
and whether we had the numbers that were equal to the opposing forces that we were going to meet on the ground, and whether we had sufficient intelligence to be able to meet the challenges that we would confront on the ground.
But the very fact that they are there to neutralize negative forces indicates that that's an enforcement mission, because how do you neutralize the M23 if you're not going to be fighting them?
We would not get involved in the internal fights of any country. When we go on a mission, even to enforce peace, we would not get involved, because the outcome of the fight between these two forces is not really in our interest, subjective or objective. Our objective is to participate as part of the multilateral forum of SADC and the AU and the United Nations to ensure there is peace, and to ensure that in case that civilians are being attacked, we are able to defend them. We would not want to see, because the conflict in the Eastern DRC also bears resemblance to some of the issues, or it carries within it some of the dynamics of Rwanda and Burundi. We would not want to see a genocide taking place. We learned from the genocide in Rwanda, and so we would like to ensure that in case civilians are being wantonly attacked, we are able to provide defense for them. But if that has to be the case, then all of these questions we were asking are relevant. Did we have enough numbers on the ground, boots on the ground? Were they trained to meet the objective of the mission? Did they have the relevant intelligence? And did they have the equipment to ensure that they are able to meet the force of the opposing forces?
But do you get the point I'm trying to make, though, about what the SANDF general said about neutralizing? There's no way you're going to neutralize any force without fighting it, which then questions what our mission there is. Are we really there for peacekeeping, or are we there to be fighting the DRC's ceasefire towards the M23? Because that's a force that the DRC army wants to neutralize.
We got because the question was asked several times, and on all occasions the minister insisted that we are on a peacekeeping mission, but we have to investigate further so that we satisfy ourselves and make the relevant recommendations to Parliament. The important thing here, and why it is important for us to make that determination, is to ensure that future requests for deployment from the presidency are properly scrutinized by the committee, so that we understand each and every letter of such request, and therefore satisfy ourselves that such permission, when granted by Parliament, meets our requirements, and we have sufficient force, equipment, and everything to fulfill that mission.
All right. Joint Standing Committee on Defence Co-Chairperson Malusi Gigaba, thank you so much for making time for us on Face the Nation tonight. After the break, we'll start a conversation with the economic freedom fighters. Stay with us. Welcome back. EFF leader Julius Malema has announced leadership deployments to bolster the party's operations across the country. Malema and Secretary General Marshal Dlamini will oversee organizational work throughout all provinces. The Deputy President Godrich Gadi will focus on Limpopo, Gauteng and the Northwest, while the Deputy Secretary General, Leanne Matthys, will be deployed to the Free State and Mpumalanga. Marshal Dlamini joins us now in studio. Marshal, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, brother, and good evening to the viewers at home.
Yeah, I want us to start off with what happened in Parliament today. The SANDF leadership was there to respond to some questions about our soldiers' deployment there. Having listened to their answer, are you satisfied with the EFF, or are you still calling for the withdrawal of our soldiers?
No, look, they failed dismally. And it was not surprising because we are just led by a group of liars. They failed on answering two simple issues. What is our army doing there? So there are two missions that they can go there for. First, it's an offensive mission, which it clearly states the reason offensive mission is a military operation where you are there either to defend a territory or to gain a territory on support of one section. Either it's M23 or it's the army of DRC. Or you are going to a peacekeeping mission, and that's what they keep saying to the country. But the peacekeeping mission has got three components that we have to pass first. The first component is that you must go there because we are saying you are coming for a peacekeeping mission. So the first thing is that you must get a consensus between the two factions. That they can't answer because there's no consensus. Secondly, you must be impartial. For the fact that they've chosen a side against M23, it means they're no longer impartial. But thirdly, it says non-use of force, not unless it's in self-defense. So you can see that they are not in a peacekeeping mission. They are in an offensive mission to defend the territory, to defend some minerals, to defend some business interests there. So they're just a group of liars, and it's unfortunate that you are led by this kind of leadership in this country, and our brothers, fathers, and children of families. They are sitting there and waiting as we speak now. We don't know what is the current situation on the ground. The minister couldn't respond, including the army generals that are there. They couldn't respond because they're busy playing golf somewhere. To them, it's entertainment and it's business as usual. So it's a very sad state.
And speaking of entertainment, there's been a call made that maybe there must not be a military parade in Parliament during the State of the Nation address on Thursday. Have you taken a position on that as the EFF? Yeah,
I've written to the Speaker to say there must be no military parade on Thursday on the State of the Nation. We're a country in mourning. Those soldiers, they were supposed to be sent to DRC to assist in the evacuation of their fellow soldiers, not to be harassing us there in Cape Town and making noise with the 21 gun salute and all those. And it's a wasteful expenditure. We are a country in mourning. How do we go and do all that celebration and all that when their fellow soldiers are on the ground being demolished by the M23 forces? So we have written to the Speaker, and we expect an immediate response on the Speaker that we don't need that spectacle. We want Cyril to go there and account for what he has done with these partners of DA in the last 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, and of course no disruptions expected from you guys.
Look, we've never disrupted. From the beginning of the EFF, we've always held the establishment and the government accountable. That's what we've done, and we'll continue doing that. We've never disrupted any session. That's why even the Court of Laws, when they took us to court, all of them, they came back and said, but those people have never disrupted. They demanded accountability.
But after the elections, Julius Malema said we're no longer going to be disrupting Parliament.
No. He said we're going to change our approach. He never said we're not going to disrupt, because we never disrupted.
What was your approach that you changed?
The approach was confrontational. We wanted to get answers then, but we realized that we're dealing with unrepentant liars and people who've got no mercy, who've got no shame. And we thought, okay, it's fine, let's just go and engage them, and we're going to continue doing that through committees in Parliament, on the streets, in the legislatures, and everywhere else the EFF is found.
Okay, let's talk about now this first Central Command Team meeting of the Third People's Assembly. That served as a platform to strengthen organizational unity. What is your plan as the EFF to strengthen organizational unity?
Look, we came from a successful conference in December that resolved on about 385 resolutions, which becomes a program of action for the elected Central Command Team for the next 5 years. So that CCT, it met to go through all those resolutions so that we start breaking them down so that they are workable and they are practical. To say for the year 2025, what are the resolutions that we're going to implement that come from that conference? Because that conference is the highest decision-making body of the EFF. So the CCT that set over the weekend with the plenum that adopted a theme of the year of the picket lines, it set, and then we're working on the program of action. One is to reinforce the EFF in terms of organizational redesign. That's why we dissolved our regional structures, and now we're establishing the sub-regional structures, which already the guidelines are out. All our provinces, they've got the guidelines. They are hitting the ground running, where they're going to be increasing the membership of the EFF. Our constitution required previously that we must have 100 members for a branch to be in good standing. Now we've increased that to 200 because we've understood the terrain of where we're working and fighting, that we need more manpower on the ground, we need more activism on the ground. So that's why we've increased the membership. So that is already in play. By June, all those sub-regional command team, they should have gone to their conferences, so that by June, the EFF on all the municipalities is represented by leadership. And we took that decision because our regional structures were too far from the ground. We are a mass-based organization. We're an organization that is grounded on activism within our communities. And the regional structures, you'll find that you've got a regional leader who is a chairperson of 5 municipalities. So the likelihood is that you might not get you might get an opportunity with this regional team to go and service our branches there. Then there was that huge gap between our branches and the leadership that is supposed to be presiding over those branches on daily basis and what is happening in our communities. And that is one of the diagnoses, because the EFF, in one of our principles, is a self-criticism. When we're doing that diagnosis, even on elections, we realize that this structure is the one that participated in the challenges that we faced when we contested elections. So now we're going to have sub-regional structures, meaning that there's no tourism. If I'm elected as a leader of a certain municipality, right back at home in Mzimkhulu, I don't have to worry about other 5 municipalities in the region. I'm focusing here, and when I wake up, the branches are within the same municipality. I engage on daily basis with the branches, which the branches will be on daily engagement with our communities, because we've got a responsibility of educating and conscientizing our communities within the politics of the EFF, as we are on this journey of pursuing economic freedom in our lifetime.
Do you think that the dysfunction in the regional structures may have contributed to you not getting your desired results during the elections?
No, definitely, because we'd have even branches themselves saying to us, but the leadership of the region, they take far just on the logistical issues. You'll find out that, for example, on the day of elections, you know that from national we're going to send food for our party agents and volunteers. But because this regional leader, he must drive all 5 municipalities, and by the time he arrives there, our party agents, they are no longer there. The volunteers, they are no longer there. They've left their stations. They have to go home to go and replenish and get food. The work that we are sending, and even on simple things of distribution of membership cards, you'll find that we'll print membership cards and give it to the regional leaders. But for them to spread all over the region to get to branches, it became difficult work. The branches, our branches, they must meet each and every month. Our PCTs, they must sit fortnightly. And the leadership at a regional level is supposed to preside over those branches. But there was not a direct contact with the branches, and that affected us, because when we wanted now to engage on this political program, speaking to our people, we were found wanting in some of the areas, because there's this huge gap of the regional leaders and branch leaders. When our people exist in municipalities, you know that our people, they exist in municipalities, with the mayor there and everything else. So that's how we're demarcated. So we're not even talking to how the country is demarcated. So we're misaligned when we're talking to the terrain where we want to wage this battle.
Okay, what mandate have you given your ground forces, especially in areas where you've got branches on the ground, but the people there, despite of your campaigning in that area, have voted for a completely different party? So what is your mandate of your ground forces, even in areas where the people there are still quite loyal to other parties but yourselves?
Look, the mandate is clear. That's why we're going back to the picket lines. Let's be found within our communities. We demand now that each and every house must have a fighter. Each and every football team in the village there must have a fighter. In each and every stockfell, each and every burial society, the EFF must exist within the communities. It must not be an elite group of leaders of a branch that sits there and talk among themselves. We're going to be cutting off of internal engagements amongst ourselves. We want to be on the ground and speaking to our people, speaking to the message of the EFF, because even with the electoral gains that we have suffered or declines, the reality is that there has never been a place where the EFF go into any house to go and do door to door and it gets rejected or chased away. So it shows that it's not our voters, it's us on how we've reorganized ourselves,
so
not spending time with our communities. And communities and voters, they demand of EFF to be available, not only during the elections time, they must be available now when there are no elections to deal with their issues and be able to resolve what are
serve and fight for even communities that have not voted for you.
No, definitely. We're going to be launching these structures and branches all over South Africa. We're contesting the whole terrain of the country.
So you've also dissolved, is it your student command for youth structure? What is the purpose of this new structure?
We have dissolved the student command. You know that our constituency, it's a youth constituency that votes for the EFF, and it defended us big time during the 2024 elections. But we speaking to that constituency through the EFF student command, which then mobilizes within the campuses. If you look at State South Africa, it says when it gives the latest statistics that came in 2021, young people between the ages of 20 to 30, there's about 11.5 million of them. But the young people that are in the voters' roll of IEC, there's about 3 million of them. So you can see there's a huge block of 8 million young people that are not even in the voters' roll. So the student command couldn't reach that group of 8 million because it only mobilizes within the campuses. So that's why we're dissolving them, so that we must speak to each and every young person from the village, in the township, and everywhere else in the informal settlement. This 8 million block, the EFF has to speak to it so that it can push it into the voters' roll, because that's a huge constituency of the EFF that some of them, by the way, they come on the voting day, and then they come and say, we want to vote for the EFF, only to find out that they are not registered. Because they saying, because automatically they think, on the basis of being a young person, I can go and vote, but only to find out that due to lack of that political education and conscientizing our people, and especially the young, they are not organized. So we want to organize them outside of the campuses, everywhere in the township. There must be youth activism in small businesses, those that are unemployed, those that are graduates, and everyone in high schools. We're going to be doing a lot of work there. So that is the decision that led us to say the student command was not effective in terms of dealing with the youth, because we want the youth to be led by the youth so that they can have their own discussion on the matters that concerns young people in this country.
You've indicated that as the EFF, you're ready to join the GNU. Are your conditions still the same? Yeah,
our conditions are still the same. We'll participate. We're voted by the people of this country. There's no outright winner, and we are not petty in terms of participation, but we're not going to sell out. We're not going to come and sit in the same room with those that support and want apartheid to return in this country. So as long as there's DA there and Freedom Front Plus, the EFF will never participate. But the minute they're out, the EFF is there, is ready to contribute. That's why you see us in municipalities. We're in Tshwane. There's no DA there. We are in Johannesburg. There's no DA there. We are in Nelson Mandela. There's no DA there. So we're doing it already in local government. In national government, we are ready to do that. But one thing we'll never do, we will never be obsessed by being in positions of government in the expense of selling our people, because that is just straight collaboration, and we're not collaborators. We'll never sell out our people and sit around the table and share the governing space of this country with those that are beneficiaries of apartheid.
So let's say the DA leaves the GNU and you come in as the economic freedom fighters. Will you still want to negotiate positions, or will you take whatever the president gives you?
Look, we're not obsessed with position. You give us any position, we turn it around, because that's a skill. That's a unique skill of the EFF. That anyway, that's why if you look at here in the city of Johannesburg, they thought they are giving us a useless Department of Health. Our MMC, she went to turn things around. We've got clinics that are operating 24 hours. So we won't be going there to say we demand this. Any position that they will give us when DA and Freedom Front Plus is not there, we'll take it and we'll demonstrate to people of South Africa. This is what leadership is about. This is what service delivery is about. This is what accountability it's about. This is how you transform the economy so that the majority of our people can benefit. So every department will turn it around.
As the EFF, do you still want to see the unity of the progressive black parties? Is that still the plan? And I'm asking that because it looks like that the EFF, you have also taken a posture against the MK party. I mean, your leader said, we don't even want to see them anyway. And this is a party that largely defines itself probably mostly along the same lines with you. So how are you going to still push for the progressive forces or just the unity of the progressive black parties without the MK party?
Look, we will always fight for the unity of black people in this country, as well fighting for the unity of Africans. So that is in the foundations of the EFF, that we have to fight for the unity, because we come to appreciate that blacks, Africans, they are hated all over the world. So we will fight for that. But we're not going to sit around and have that unity. We don't operate in fake arrangements and artificial arrangements. Once we talk unity, it must be genuine unity that is there for, to assist and make sure that the interests of the people of this country, they are put on the
but
table.
But the MK party says it's reaching out to you. Do you think that's fake? They're not serious about joining forces with you genuinely?
No, we don't think they're genuine, because you can't say you advocating for the unity of black people and behind the scenes you are working 24 hours to destroy that same organization. I mean, you are just taking us for a ride, and we're not going to accept that, because when we are pursuing the unity of black people, we're not going to sacrifice ourselves in the hands of our opponents and those ones to destroy this last weapon in the hands of the poor. So when people, they say we want unity, we're going to have to look at who are these people and what is their intention. Yeah. Once we see that their intentions are of the same of those that are continuing to run this country, the same of the racist, then we might have to club them with the racist, and then we must defend ourselves. So anyone who seeks to try and undermine the programs of the EFF or work on a clear program of destroying the EFF will defend itself. So we're not going to be blackmailed through being just because of a black skin. You know that there are people who just got black skin, but you know that their heart and mind, it represents reactionary forces and it represents white interests. So
what
we want genuine programs.
What have they done that suggests that they're trying to destroy you as the EFF?
Look, they've done everything, and respectfully so, my brother, I would want to spend less time speaking about MK. They're not a program of the EFF. We just came from a conference. We resolved on a program of action. They are non-issue. So coming and sitting here, you know, as well as sitting here now, there's over 600,000 matriculants who have passed matric, and only 200,000 spaces are available in the university. We've got close to 400,000 or 300,000 of young people that are sitting now. They don't know where to go home, and they see top journalists like you and leaders speaking on TV, then they are wasting time gossiping and talking about non-relevant issues like MK. So let's talk to the real issues.
Okay, so first of all, we do talk about matric results. We've spoken about it many times. On this show, we cover all the topics.
I'm just giving you the issues of national interest.
I'm also clarifying that whoever is watching us now and judging this conversation based on the 2 minutes, then they would be very flawed. I'm asking that question because it's in context to you as the EFF. You sat with the MK party.
Yes.
I wasn't sitting with the MK party. You invited the MK party in parliament. You sat and said, we're going to join forces. So you've decided to walk away from that arrangement, clearly.
No, but
my responsibility is also to ask you about that.
Including that progressive charter that we signed, it was on the work that we do in Parliament.
Yeah.
So let me give you a simple example today. We went to Parliament as a WIPARI. There was an issue in terms of how to amend the list and everything else. Yeah. We reached out to the ANC, MK, they were there, the DA, they were there, and the ATM and UTM. We supported each other to say, we don't think this speaker works in terms of the logistics and the operations of Parliament. So ours, it's an item-based issue.
Will you still support each other in Parliament?
We will raise our issues if they support those issues. If they make sense, there's no problem.
Work together if they make sense.
If it makes sense, we'll support that. But that is just Parliament. It starts and it ends there. It's based on base. That's why we even with the DA, you would know that even with the DA, as much as we differ fundamentally with who they are, but if there's an issue they raise in Parliament, it makes sense at the time, On the matters that we're dealing with inside that house, we have supported them and they've supported us.
Okay. Marshal Dlamini, thank you so much for coming to studio tonight.
Thank you, my brother.
And after the break, we are going to play some of your WhatsApp voice notes. We've been asking you tonight, what should be our government's approach to address these attempts to interfere with our sovereignty while maintaining a positive relationship with America. In fact, let's go to some of those WhatsApp voice notes right now. We've asked you if you are satisfied with the response by our government. In fact, let's start with your tweets. Jolly Store Guy says South African government should take a balanced diplomatic approach that protects national sovereignty while maintaining strong ties with the US, such as to assert diplomatic neutrality, maintain an independent foreign policy that prioritizes South Africa's national interests. Tabiso says, I think South Africa can continue to engage with the US through diplomacy, ensuring that any interference in its sovereignty is addressed in a clear but non-confrontational manner. The USA is bullying us, says Colin. SA must never bow to such. USA doesn't own us. Of course, ours should be maintaining bilateral relations with them. But where they lash on us disrespectfully, we also have a right to defend our sovereignty harshly so. Thank you so much for your tweets. Let's also listen to some of the WhatsApp voice notes that have come through so far, responding to how our government should be approaching this matter with Donald Trump and his threats. Let's take a listen to some of those WhatsApp voice notes.
Hi, my name is Ion Nechamulivo. As long as Africans are not united, America and its allies will take advantage of us. We have got all the mineral resources in our midst. Why can't we use them as one of our leverages? Hi, my name is Ion Nechamulivo. As long as Africans are not united, America and its allies will take advantage of us. We have got all the mineral resources in our midst. Why can't we use them as one of our leverages?
I personally feel that it is very pathetic of African countries to be pleading and borrowing and asking for plea from Donald Trump, especially from the European countries, that pretend as if we need them more than they need us. They have American companies planted all over Africa, yet they pretend as if we need them as much as not as much as they need us.
Hey, Clement. It is unfortunate that we have Afriforum, which needs to be charged for treason. That's part one. Part two, our president should stand firm, should not be a yes sir to Donald Trump. If he can stand firm like he did before, then we will have it. I thank you. This is Tula in Northwest.
All right, so Afriforum says it will write to the U.S. government requesting that President Donald Trump's proposed punitive measures against South Africa target senior ANC leaders instead of the country's residents. The organization says it will also urge the South African government to amend the Expropriation Act to protect property rights and avert a potential crisis. This comes after the U.S. president falsely claimed that land was being confiscated in the country and threatened to cut aid to South Africa as a punitive measure. Afriforum CEO Kali Kriel joins us now via video link. Kali, thank you so much for making time. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Clemens. Great speaking to you.
Why have you taken a posture against this, sort of the negative posture against this country and encourage this false propaganda that's being peddled by the U.S. president?
Well, the fact is that Afriforum has always been loyal to the people of South Africa, and all our actions are also aimed to benefit the people of South Africa. And because we are loyal, we know what the negative impact would be of disrespect for property rights. And that is why we do everything to try and save our country from going the Venezuela or Zimbabwean route. We also, in terms of when we engage internationally, and we state that categorically, that we don't want South Africa and its citizens to be punished, especially in the US. We've gone and said, with regard to the AGOA agreement, saying it would be to the detriment of everyone in this country, except, of course, the politicians, if that is cancelled. So that has been our position. But then, of course, President Trump came and said he wants to take action. And then our position would say, well, rather than acting against the normal citizens, rather than act against those politicians that you are angry with.
Well, did you see anything wrong with what Donald Trump tweeted?
No, I think there is, of course, there's not large-scale expropriation without compensation or large land grabs by government at the moment. We are seeing land grabs, but not that are government-driven, but also then the police don't do their job. But the real issue is that Section 12.3 of the Expropriation Act, even if people deny it, just go and read the Act. It says it allows for no compensation. It lists a few issues, but it says including but not limited. So it's open-ended for compensation.
I get that, and we'll get to the expropriation bill in a moment. But I want to clarify this first, Akali. You do agree that Donald Trump is wrong to suggest that what's happening in South Africa is what he says in that tweet, that the land seizures are already happening?
Yes, no. It is going to happen if we go on this route, but it has not happened at the hands of government. But he is right that certain sections of the population are being treated very
we'll
badly.
get to that. I wanted to clarify the first part. So we do agree that Donald Trump is wrong to suggest that that's already happening in South Africa. If you agree with that, why didn't you correct him? Instead, you said punishing South Africans wouldn't be ideal, rather punish the ANC leaders. For what, then, if you do agree that what he's suggesting through that tweet is incorrect because it's not already happening in South Africa?
No, the gist of what he says is correct. It might not have happened, but this Expropriation Act allows for that to happen. And you cannot sit back and say, well, let's just allow for that to happen. In our engagements with the US representatives, unlike the propaganda that is going ahead against us, we are frank with regards to the facts. We've never said that there's now going to be simply property of everybody is going to be taken. We refer to the specific sections of the Act, and those are very, very troubling sections of the Act. So what we've seen, unlike what people try to say, we actually, the fire brigade, we didn't start the fire. We want to make sure that we solve this. The fire was started by the President of South Africa by signing an act that disrespects
But it went through
rights.
Parliament. Do you appreciate, though, that this Expropriation Act went through parliamentary processes? It was supported by several parties. That was a constitutional process. And if you accept that, why then must Trump supposedly interfere and take action against ANC leaders when it's not just ANC leaders who supported this bill?
Well, maybe I should start off by saying it went through the Parliament of the 6th administration. There are numerous examples where acts, when there was a new administration, were changed. This act has now gone through for the president's signature in this new administration. The fact is, the Constitution allows the president to refer the act back to Parliament or to the Constitutional Court. So this is not outside of the democratic process.
If he is not satisfied, if he is not satisfied with the constitutionality, but if he is, he can sign it.
Well, we wrote to him in April last year asking him to make representations to him. He did not even answer us. So that's a real problem in that regard. So we are going to court. But because he believes it's fine, this has now led to the situation with the US. Why is it important to the US? We are a sovereign country. I agree with that. And we can do what we want, and the US is a sovereign country, and they can do what they want. But in terms of this AGOA agreement with the US, it's beneficial to South Africa, and it's a benefit that we should use. But part of that agreement is a country that participates should respect property rights.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, in the interest of our own people, the viewers tonight, who will lose jobs if we are kicked out, that is why the president should have thought twice. And we warned him to say, but international investment is going to be threatened. Don't do this. But he just went ahead. So people should not blame us. They should blame the president.
You still chose to target ANC leaders, though, even though there are other parties that supported this bill. Even the Democratic Alliance, for instance, has its own concerns about the bill, but they've released a statement to indicate that this fear-mongering of suggesting that people are just going to have their land taken away is not true. So why the ANC? Why are you not saying every single member of parliament who supported this bill, then Trump must punish them?
Well, the leaders that drove this process, of course, I can't speak on behalf of the Democratic Alliance. Okay. I've read their
all right.
statements.
Kali Kriel, apologies there. Your line is breaking there, Kali Kriel, but that's where we'll have to leave it. Thank you so much for making time for us. Kali Kriel is the CEO at Afriforum. Thanks to you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening. Cheers.